Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast. Each week, your host, Casey Hasten, Director of Recruiting at VIP, will bring you valuable insights from thought leaders, introduce you to incredible companies, and bring you tips for landing your dream job from our team of executive recruiters at VIP. And now, Casey Hasten.
Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast, a podcast devoted to adding value to your career or candidate search, brought to you by VIP. I'm your host, Casey Hasten. I'm an executive recruiter. I'm the director of recruiting with VIP, and I am your all-around hiring guru. And once again, I am bringing you some of the best thought leaders that I can find to help you along your career path. And today is absolutely no different. So I'd like to welcome Scott Turner, Chief Visionary Officer at JPI. Scott is a highly accomplished business professional, nationally recognized motivational speaker, and pastor who is uniquely positioned at the intersection of business, professional sports, and community engagement. Scott previously played in the NFL for 9 years, and you're going to be shocked when you see him because he's not broken after 9 years. But he played as a cornerback and special teams leader, and in 2012, he was elected to represent Texas's District 33. Thanks for joining us today, Scott.
Thank you for having me, Casey.
You know, I have got like the best job in the world because I get to sit down and learn from visionaries like you. It's incredible.
Well, no, you've been a great joy to be with already, so I'm looking forward to it.
You know, you've had some interesting titles post, your professional football career, post serving your country, by, going to Congress. I know one of them is Chief Visionary Officer. There was another one that you had a couple of roles back.
I served as the Chief Inspiration Officer for Systemware.
Yes.
And then the Executive Director for the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council with Ben Carson.
So, which is incredible. That's name drop. So do you make up your titles when you come in? Do you negotiate that? How does that work? Because those are some really unique titles.
That's a good question. I never made up one of them. The Chief Inspiration Officer, the CEO of the software company that I worked at, he created that position and title. And then the Executive Director of the White House Council, that was created by the President. And then the Chief Visionary Officer was created by myself and the leadership at JPI.
That is so interesting. I love that. So I just came up with a new title for my assistant.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
And it was funny because we came up with several, and when I told her the one that I really liked, she goes, "That's good. I've already changed my title in my email." And I was my signature in my email. So I'm a lot to deal with. Mm-hmm. And so instead of just calling her an executive assistant, because she's so much more than that to me, she is now the Director of Chaos.
Oh. Okay, that's a strong name. Yeah. That says it all.
Doesn't it? I think it's important. Just like our names are important, I think our titles are important too. And I think they speak so much more. Instead of like Chief Human Resource Officer, you're the visionary. You're the person that's casting that vision and really dragging the team or inspiring the team to follow along with the vision that you create. But I'm really curious, how you got to this position with JPI and what were some of the pivotal experiences that led you to where you are today?
Well, that's a great question. I've always been a dreamer. I grew up in kind of a tough situation and spent a lot of time dreaming, a lot of time visualizing. This is where I am today, but I'm not going to always be here. This is where I'm dreaming to be. And so I think from the time I was an adolescent, teenager, young adult, I've always been a dreamer and a planner and a strategist. And I guess you can call that a visionary. But a big part of that came from sports. Because I received some advice one day from one of my teammates' father. And he said, before you run this 100-meter dash, because I ran track in high school, he said, I want you to visualize the race before you run it. And that was one of the greatest pieces of advice I ever received.
How old were you?
I was 16.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that helped me throughout the course of my life. visualize not just where I am, but where I want to be and what it takes, count the cost. What is the strategy? What's the plan? And so I think that through that, then going to the NFL and playing 9 years in the NFL, and which
That's a long time, isn't it?
Yeah, I was very blessed to play. The average career is 3 years.
Yeah.
A little bit over 3 years. And so to play 9 years is, like I said, it was a great blessing. And I had great mentors along the way that helped me to plan for life after football. And so I say that because while I was in the NFL, I started thinking about, what's next, because the NFL stands for not for long, And Darryl Green told me you have to prepare to retire every year. And so, Casey, I really started thinking about the future while I was playing. And then I went into the House of Representatives, to the White House, business, and here we are.
Now, and how long were you in Congress?
I was in there 2 terms. So I served in the Texas House of Representatives in House District 33. It was a new district created in 2012. I was elected in 2013. And that district encompassed all of Rockwall County and Frisco-Collin County. So Frisco, Prosper, Salina, Anna, Blue Ridge, and Farmersville.
Okay.
So that was a great joy to serve there. Then I got appointed by the president in 2019 by President Trump to lead the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council. And I mentioned Ben Carson because Ben Carson at the time was Secretary of HUD, and he was the chairman of the council that I was the executive director for. And my job was to go across the country and go into the most impoverished areas of our country and build public-private partnerships and help people dream again, build new businesses to get out of poverty. And so really, my life has been, full of the opportunity to have a vision.
Well, and I think that it's so important that your experiences that you had prior to all that, really gave you that underpinning that you needed to be able to support those visions. But I want to go back to what you were talking about visualizing, because I think this is something that gets so overlooked.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important that, and you call it dreaming, visualizing, but it's not just pie in the sky dreaming. This is really about training your brain to see what you want it to see.
That's right.
Like you saw yourself running that race and hopefully winning.
Yeah,
And then you went and did it because your brain already thought you did it.
that's right.
There's so much science behind that
It is.
that helps us to achieve what it is that we're visualizing. Visualizing is part of my morning routine.
Good.
Every day.
Yeah,
Every
I like
day.
it. I encourage people, and even those listen to this podcast, don't be afraid to dream. Don't be afraid to visualize. Because, I can't remember who said it, but the quote says, what happens in your mind happens in time.
I have not heard that quote, but I love it.
Yeah, what happens in your mind happens in time. And so it's a discipline. Mm-hmm. And if you're always thinking negative thoughts, thinking negative things about yourself, negative things about other people, negative things about your future, it has nothing to do with mysticism. I'm a Christian. My faith is in Christ. But even then, it's, you have to have a vision. You have to have a plan. You have to have an understanding. And so to me, it brings great joy, to help other people have a vision.
I love that. And I got to unpack just a little bit of this. But, we talk about what you were just saying about the negativity and all that. And really what you're telling your brain when you're so focused on that negativity is, that's all I want to see.
That's right.
And your brain has to filter out some of that information. So it's like, well, she told me she only wanted to see negative stuff. So throw away all the positive and just filter in that negative.
Yeah.
It's really a mindset.
It
It's
is.
so important.
It is. And you become myopic.
Yeah.
And you have tunnel vision.
Yes.
And so the good things that are out there, you don't see them because you're bogged down with negative vision. And so part in this season of my life, what I get great joy out of is not only, being a visionary, being a strategic, being a servant leader, but helping other people to see things maybe in a way that they haven't seen it before with the experiences that I've been blessed with.
So, in your opinion, what sets your leadership style apart, and what in your background has helped your leadership style to be different?
Humility.
Ooh.
I think that, one reason why I went into the House of Representatives was to use the platform the voice, the experience, the resources, the relationships that I have to serve. Because one thing I saw, I did an internship with U.S. Congress while I was in the NFL. And I learned from a gentleman named J.C. Watts and another gentleman named Congressman Duncan Hunter what it means to be a true statesman. And true statesmen are humble. They lead with humility. They don't just go in to be served, but they go in to serve. And so I learned that from those men. And so when I retired from the NFL, I said, I want to do that for my country. And I want to go in, not as a celebrity, not as this football player, but going in as Scott Turner from Richardson, Texas, who was a dishwasher at Spring Creek Barbecue, who has been very blessed over these years and utilized that to serve people and help others to be great. And so I think that's what sets it apart. And in my case is humility. You know, and I've been through too much to be arrogant. Not that I can't be arrogant, because I sure have. But I've learned along the way, you know what, God has put me and allowed a lot of things in my life that have brought me great humility. But in that humility, I find strength and I find joy. And I find the opportunity to say, you know what, I'm going to humble myself before the Lord, and I'm going to help others to be great so that they can experience what I have.
How do you use that to drive success at JPI?
So in JPI, you know, JPI is a developer, construction, multifamily, you know, in an arena that I haven't been involved in, you know, prior to going to JPI. I saw a lot of construction when I was at the White House leading the council, but my job at the White House was to be an ambassador for the country and representative for the president in impoverished communities by way of policy, by way of vision, by way of strategy, but not building. But because I had been in that industry when JPI brought me along to help with government affairs, to help with the vision for the company, I started learning building. I started learning, you know, what is multifamily? What is return on capital? You know, what is design and development? And so when I went in, I didn't go in as this guy who had played in the NFL, served in the House, worked at the White House. That was not my mentality. My mentality going into JPI is, how can I utilize what I have to help you be better? And I didn't even tell people that I played in the NFL. They found out, obviously, because it's in my bio.
Right.
But I didn't go in as like, hey, I'm a 9-year superstar from the NFL. I went in like, hey, I'm Scott. How can I help you? And so that's how we ride.
I love that. You know, and I will tell you, before I met several people that had retired out of the NFL, I always thought, I was like, you know, if I ever run across those guys, and this is just a preconceived notion, that they're just going to be, you know, look at me, all arrogant and all that kind of stuff. And I have met some of the nicest people, like yourself, like Chris Gronkowski, like other NFL players, that I'm just like, you're just real.
Yeah.
You know?
Real.
Yeah.
And, you know, the NFL teaches you. If you utilize your career in the NFL properly, the transferable skills that you learn are life-changing. Yes. And you can't get them anywhere else. Teamwork, struggle, trial, victory, failure, humility, service, you know, and so, and most of the guys in the NFL, and now I'm speaking as a former NFL player.
Okay.
Most of the guys that play in the NFL, they love their mothers or their grandmothers or their aunts who raised them. And a lot of these guys are very, very tender-hearted. The problem is a lot of them have not been trained or discipled or mentored properly, which is part of what I get to do now in addition to this. And so these guys, I mean, I love them, especially the big ones, you know, the linemen. They're like gentle giants. You know, DBs like me, kind of a little bit more edgy, because we have a hard job.
Yeah.
You know, we have to run backwards for a living, you know, and so.
I didn't know that.
So anyway, but yeah, you're right. They're great guys.
They really are, and I enjoy that I get to support some of their causes, and a lot of them support causes that I'm very passionate about. You know, and I want to kind of go back to this, you know, the impoverished, you know, putting housing in impoverished neighborhoods. Why are you so passionate about that?
You know, because like I said, I grew up and a tough situation. Mine, when I say tough in mine, it was more of the divorce, domestic violence, but ultimately the breaking of my family unit, which caused a brokenness in my heart because I was no longer with my mother and father. And so when I look at people in our country that are in distressed, quote unquote, situations, be it housing, be it family, be it education, be it health, I just have a tender place in my heart for that. And so when I came to JPI from the White House, having seen this, I went to 80 cities in our country in 10 months. Wow. So I traveled a lot of our country and saw a lot of poverty in a lot of ways: family poverty, spiritual poverty, economic poverty, education poverty. And so when JPI decided that we wanted to build workforce housing to serve those people in our community who were kind of like the retail workers, firemen, police, teachers, but to give them a Class A plus living environment, the best of the best living environment, in such a manner we're partnering with the cities that they can not only afford it, but thrive in it. That's what drew me to JPI, because the spirit of JPI is not just to build the best communities, but it is to impact the communities in which we build. The council that I led, the spirit of it was not only economic development, but community development.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because you mentioned that when we were talking, when we were getting introduced to one another, and you talked about the spirit of JPI. Yeah. And I hear you saying that again. So talk to me a little bit more about what does that look like to you, the spirit of JPI? Right. And why would somebody want to come work with you?
Well, thank you. So, in a legislator, they say, what is the spirit of the law? What's the core? What is the heartbeat? What is the purpose? And so when I say spirit, those are the words that I'm using to define it. And so JPI, 35-year-old company, largest developer in DFW.
Of multifamily homes.
Yeah, of multifamily homes, 8th largest in the country. So JPI has been around for a long time, has a tremendous track record, has wonderful people, Peyton Mays, Bobby Page, all the guys who, Bobby and those guys that founded it, Peyton, who's the CEO, and on down, just wonderful people that work there. But a company can only last for that long if the core or the spirit of that company is solid and clear with a defined trajectory. And so when I talk about the spirit of it, yes, you see the multifamily that's built.
Yes.
It's beautiful. It's the best of the best. But what you don't see with your eye is the spirit. What's the heartbeat? The heartbeat is wherever we build, we want to impact the community of the people for which we are building. And so when we go in and we build a project, it's not just to build that to provide housing. That's one thing. But the other thing is, how do we take root here and be a blessing and impact the people and the families and the associates and the trade partners that we're building for and with? So that's what I mean by the spirit.
And I think that is so important, because as a recruiter, I talk to a lot of talent. And one of the most consistent things that I hear is they want to work for a company that they can believe in.
That's right.
And they want to work for a company for which they feel passionate about.
Right.
And I encourage people every day, find your passion so you'll never work another day in your life.
That's right.
And so I think that that's what I'm hearing. Like, if you want to help people have better living standards, this could be a company you could get behind and support.
And you're exactly right. And JPI, our number one thing is our people.
Okay, I have a question about that.
Okay.
So
go ahead.
How does JPI help their employees feel like they are supported and that they are integral to the company culture?
So from day one, and even more so now, 35 years later, we make it a point to let the associates of JPI know how important they are. How do we do this? One, we interact with each other on a daily basis. Leadership, we have one-on-one meetings with other leaders. So like, say me, I'm the chief visionary officer. The people that work in my group or people that report to me, we have one-on-one meetings. And it's trickled down throughout the company. We have family events. We have lunch Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. So we have a lunch room that we created at JPI where we break bread together, we fellowship together, we talk together. We have a game room where we play together, where we commune together. And we work very, very hard in the construction industry. It's a hard business.
Yep.
And so our people in the field, we go out and we visit the project sites. Last week we went to 2 project sites here in Addison and in Frisco to see how's the team doing. The CEO, the chief people officer, and me, the chief visionary officer. We go. We don't send other people. We go ourselves. And why do I say that? Because when people know how much you care, it does something for them. Doesn't matter what your position is at JPI. You have a voice. If you have a good idea, bring it. It's welcomed. And not only is it welcomed, but it's listened to. And so I say all that because we actually have a division. It's called People and Culture.
That's an actual standalone division.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
And Missy, who's the chief people officer, runs that and does a tremendous job. And so the events that we have, the groundbreakings we have, the celebrate, like when babies are born, we celebrate that.
We do
We
too.
celebrate people's birthdays. We celebrate anniversaries. And like it says in the scriptures, we rejoice together and we mourn together as a family. And so if somebody wants to come work at JPI, that's what they're going to get.
I think that is so important. And you've pretty much described the culture that we experience at VIP as well. And, we've had, I just told you, we've got a 2-week-old VIP baby well, she's not in the office yet. We're hoping, we keep trying to talk them into putting a bassinet over in the corner so she can come to work so we can see her.
Yeah.
And we do that too. We mourn together. When somebody loses a family member, we all come together and we support. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, people have dropped food off at my house from work because, something was going on and they knew I needed that additional support.
That's right.
And I think when you find a place like that, well, even just this podcast, when I came to the partners and almost 5 years ago and said, hey, I want to do this thing. And they're like, and people weren't doing this that much. Companies weren't doing it as much as they are now. And they were like, you know what? Let's try it.
Yeah.
See how it works. So I love that you say that, you can bring your ideas forward and they'll even be listened to, even encouraged if it makes sense to foster that feeling of, I'm a part of this. I get to have a voice.
That's right. That's right. It's important to feel important.
It's important to feel important. You have said so many things. We could have just stopped the show and been done already. That was really good, though. It's important to feel important.
Yeah.
What are some initiatives coming up that JPI has going on?
Well, so we have an office here. Our headquarters is here in Capel, in Cypress Waters. But we also have an office in Southern California.
Okay.
So one in San Diego, one in Irvine. And that's where we've been in Southern California for 25 years. We've been in DFW for 35 years. And so now we're talking about, how do we take the business that we do have and do it better, here locally in Southern California. And then from there, what about expansion? Where do we expand to? What are the markets that have a need for JPI product, for JPI people? And so that's what we've been talking about lately to see where we can expand to.
I think that is so exciting. And I know we've worked with you guys on the recruiting side for many years. And it's always like when a role comes in for JPI, everybody's like, yes, easy sell, because y'all have such a great culture and just, they're so good to your people there. And I hope that this podcast will kind of highlight that and bring it to life because, candidates have a lot of choices out there.
They do.
And they don't always get to hear from somebody like yourself about why they might want to work there before they make that decision to even have that interview.
Yes, and thank you.
I-
Thank you for this opportunity.
Absolutely. I have another question for you, though, because I'm very curious. I lead an organization called Young Executives. It's part of a bigger organization called Success North Dallas. And I'd be very curious to hear what piece of advice that you would give to these young executives who are aspiring leaders. Okay. What's your best advice?
It's 2 pieces of advice. One, I would say, take inventory constantly. Don't ever think that you have arrived.
Ooh.
Because you haven't. And don't let pride get in the way of your growth. There's no room for pride in leadership. Because when you're prideful, then you're not a good listener. And when you're prideful, it's hard for humility to take place. The second piece I would say is take your time. Don't rush. You want to make a good decision, not just a decision. And when I say take your time, meaning this, everything is not for you. Just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should do it. Take your time and pray for discernment and then make your decision.
Okay, those messages were for me today, not for our young executives. Thank you very much. Oh my gosh, this has been absolutely amazing. And I can't wait to ask you our VIP questions to see how that brain works. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. If you were chosen to be one of the first colonists on Mars, what 3 things or people would you take with you?
If I was chosen to be one of the first colonists on Mars, I would take my Bible, my wife, and a whiteboard.
A whiteboard? Mm-hmm. How are you going to write on it? Or is that a package set?
Yeah, they come with a pen.
Okay. My son just confiscated my whiteboard, by the way. Okay. What is one thing you do each morning to set your day up for success?
The first thing I wake up at 5:30 a.m. and I have a quiet devotion time. I pray and I read scripture. And I sit before the Lord for some time to settle my mind. Then I work out. And then I go.
Have you read the book, The Miracle Morning?
No, ma'am.
Check it out.
All right.
It's a good book.
I
But
will.
you've listed at least 2 of the savers.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and I've been doing The Miracle Morning for about 6 years now. So
Okay.
be curious to get your thoughts on it.
Excellent.
All right, my last question. If your life's work was being summarized in a news article, what would the headline be?
Humility before honor.
Boom. I love it. How do people get in touch with you? I know they're going to want to follow you.
I'm on Instagram
Is that it?
and I think on Facebook.
I think you're on LinkedIn too.
Oh, LinkedIn. Yes, ma'am. I'm on
yes,
LinkedIn.
because I think we got connected.
Yes,
I'm a big LinkedIn girl.
Okay,
you
I'm
know?
on there.
Yep, I'm not so much Instagram.
I'm getting, I'm more of a face-to-face person. I'd rather talk to people than text them. I'm
Same.
kind of old school.
Yeah.
I do have a wonderful team that makes sure that I'm, on social media, in particular for our foundation, our family foundation, ceoc.org.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram.
Tell us a little bit about your foundation.
So our foundation, my wife and I started it when I came home from the White House in 2021 because I was praying. I said, I've been so blessed to have this platform of sport and business and ministry. What do I do with it? What can I do or build that will outlast me?
Legacy.
And so my wife and I started a foundation called CEOC, Community Engagement and Opportunity Council. And we built this because I learned about a young girl in South Dallas. She was in the 5th grade at the time. This was 3 years ago. And she read at a 1st grade level. So she was illiterate. And so I learned along the trail, having spent a lot of time with Dr. Carson and others, that education is the greatest trajectory that we can give a child.
Absolutely.
Properly educating them.
Yes.
And so we start building early childhood learning labs to help kids K through 5, supplemental, after school, become proficient readers. Only 1/3 of 4th graders in America read at a grade level in the 4th grade. 1/3. So that means 2/3 do not. And so we built these learning labs, and we have volunteers, teachers, to where 3 days a week kids come after school and they get to learn how to become proficient readers. And we have Bible memory verse, Bible stories, reading, sight words, pledge of allegiance, all of these things. So we're teaching them character, history, and reading. Because if you can't read, you can't do anything.
That's right.
And then we have a second part to our foundation. It's a mentorship program called First Down.
Of course.
And the reason why we call it First Down is because to get a first down in the NFL is a game of inches. Every inch is a fight. So when you get a first down, the momentum changes. And so what we want to do with the platform that we have is help the momentum change in young people's life. But it's going to be a struggle. and a fight, and we create it. We create struggle.
We do.
Yes. And so with that, we have 4 sessions per semester that they go through. Professional etiquette. How do you say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir? How do you look somebody in the eyes and shake their hand firmly? How do you respect yourself and respect others? What does it mean to sit at the table and understand what the silverware is for? Where's the bread? Where's the drink? And then we come to the second one, role versus identity. I'm a football player. Yes, that's my role, but it's not my identity. And the third one was the dangers of social media and the internet for young people.
That's right, because Julie Jones helps you with that, and she was on the podcast years ago.
She did.
She is amazing. She is so good. I've got so many people that I would love to introduce you to that can support both your causes that I think we need to talk. We may even need to have just a whole nother podcast just on your organization, because I think that's amazing what you're doing. We just recently had Jim Keys, former CEO of 7-Eleven. He just wrote a book called Education is Freedom.
Excellent.
There could be some real tandem work for you to do together on that. So, oh my gosh, I would talk to you all day. Unfortunately, I have to wrap this podcast up. So I just have one last thing to say to you. You are a VIP.
Thank you. You are too. Thank you, Casey.
And that's a wrap for today. Join us next week here on the We Are VIP podcast. We'd love to know how we can help you be a VIP. To find out more, log on to wearevip.com.